For safety reasons, I wanted to know how strong laminated glass truly is. If you want to see what I put this glass through, stay tuned to the end. But
if you want to learn how to install this beautiful glass railing for yourself, keep on watching. Let's get started.
I completely transformed this entire deck this summer, but this deck obviously needs a railing, and for that, we're going to be going with a glass railing.
Now that our decking is fully installed, it's finally time for our railing. But because we're going to be going with a beautiful glass railing from Viewrail, we have to make sure it's extremely accurate, which is also why they sent out this installation kit to measure out pinpoint accuracy. So let's get it opened and measure it out accordingly.
The installation kit comes with mounting template plates and makes it extremely easy to figure out exactly how everything needs to line up appropriately around the perimeter of your deck. We also have screws for the template plates or double back adhesive pads. You also have an installation guide, but who needs that when you have me doing a helpful tutorial? Just kidding, you still need to write the actual measurements on the back side of this. I first go about marking a line where the center of our rim joist is placed, and keep in mind that I do have a deck fascia, which is why I'm measuring out 1.25 inches from the edge of the deck. I line up the screw mounting holes with the line that I just placed, because keep in mind that these mounting holes are the exact layout for our base plates when our base plates actually get here. That's why this templating system is so ingenious, as well as the fact that the template have these thin side strips that are attached to the center plate, because that is acting as the guide for our glass panels. Just make sure you're leaving 1/4 to 1/2 inch between those two panels that are meeting right at the dead corner. At points where the railing is going to be diving into the house or into another structure, you need to make sure that the space in between the house and the glass panel also has 1/4 to 1/2 inch of space. Once I have all my plates in, I can start the measuring process, and the measuring process is extremely easy. All you have to do is take outside corner to outside corner. However, in areas where it's too long of a span even for one tape measure, I actually just place a line where 20 feet meets on one side and then measure out on the other side of the deck. That way I'm easily able to add up these two measurements into one measurement and provide that to Viewrail. For this entire deck, all I have to do is provide Viewrail with 3 measurements in total, 1, 2, 3, and as long as these 3 measurements were correct, lo and behold, we have a perfect amount of glass panels and hardware that shows up just a few weeks later. Each one of these glass panels is quite heavy, so if you can't lift it by yourself, then make sure you have a helping hand to do so. It was perfectly packaged, so no issue with breakage, and before I start diving into these panels, why don't we get to the hardware? Viewrail calls out these as their Ascend Talon base plates. Now these are extremely beefy and they're made of aluminum with a powder coat black finish, which means that these base plates will hold up over time with many different types of weather, and I won't have to worry about rust in comparison to steel related products. Once I have all the talons unboxed, I then start laying them out on the deck. Obviously noting ahead of time that each panel of glass is approximately 46 inches, and therefore making sure that we have appropriate amount of talons all the way across the deck. As I make my way to the first corner that I'll be installing our talons, I quickly grab the template that we installed previously just to double check the layout is appropriate for the holes that we drilled out previously, and they are. Now as you can see, I did cap off these holes after I removed the template, but made pre-drilling my holes extremely easy because I knew exactly where I needed to drill. As for fasteners, we have these 4-inch long lag screws that come with the kit, and each one of these talons gets 4 screws. The most important thing when securing these base plates to our deck is to make sure that they're properly leveled, and to make sure that they're level on all 4 sides, because if they're off at all on any of the sides, that could affect the installation process of the glass later down the road. As you're pre-drilling these holes, it's a good time to make sure that you have proper blocking below. And we do have plenty of blocking below at the corners of this deck, but I did have to add some excess blocking around the front rim joist, which you'll see momentarily. In a perfect world, each one of these talons would be installed with 4 screws and be perfectly straight. However, we don't live in that perfect world, and there's going to be plenty of shims needed here and there, but just slight adjustments. I might have to insert a shim on the back side, the front, or even possibly the sides until I get perfectly true level. And again, I'm looking for level on all 4 sides. I highly recommend using composite shims for this installation, especially with the fact that this is an exterior railing. You want to guarantee yourself that the shims that you're installing underneath these posts will never degrade over time. Each talon also comes with a cover plate, so it hides all those unsightly welds as well as fasteners, so you have a perfectly clean look in the end. Each panel of glass already has all of the holes pre-drilled for these talons, and that means I need to make sure that the distance between each talon is exactly the distance that's needed for each panel of glass. I measure the distance between the hole locations on the glass, and that gives me the exact measurement needed for our talons to be center on center. Once I secure our 4th base plate and guarantee that the entire thing is level, while also double checking that the top of our talons are also level, I can move on to the next step of installation, which is these glass gaskets. Now this is a very tough, thick glass gasket, which are applied directly to the talons at the fastener locations, as well as on the back side of our dovetail washers. This is key to have for proper glass longevity because this provides a very strong, durable barrier between our glass and our metal fittings or our metal talons, and that means there's much less chance of breakage down the line if these are in place properly. With those now in place, we can now finally move on to some glass. If you get the installation kit, you actually get these nice suction cups that makes the handling process of these large, heavy panels much more manageable. And speaking of manageable, the one tool I actually rented, and thank goodness I did, was a drywall cart. This thing made it much more manageable to maneuver these large heavy panels through multiple doorways and get it onto the deck very easy. Once on the deck, or in this case also on the roof, I position the panel as needed and then secure our first fitting. Then I secure the opposite side, making sure that I'm laying out each one appropriately. And as you can see, there's a large nylon bushing that goes in between our washer and our talon. This not only helps the positioning process, but it also makes sure that the glass is not resting right up against our screws. Once this first panel was in place, I was able to easily determine the height needed between the top of our deck and the bottom of our glass panel. That made the installation process a lot more manageable because I was easily able to lay our glass panel right on top of our wood block, which gave me almost perfect positioning, and after I had all 4 bolts secured, I could then do some minor adjustments because I knew it wasn't going to be going anywhere once the screws were actually in place. I can make some slight adjustments to our glass panel as I'm installing it to guarantee ourselves that we have a level surface at the very top. As long as I have level at the top, I can move on to the next adjacent panel. Spacing between glass panel edge to edge is approximately 1 inch. By adding that 1 inch to the measurement from our edge to the center of our hole selections is going to provide the exact center mark needed for our next talon. And as I noted before, you may need to add some excess blocking underneath. In this case, we only have 1 rim joist board and therefore need to provide some type of added blocking right underneath each post location. This guarantees ourselves that we have plenty of structural support underneath this decking because in order to provide a structurally sound railing, we need to make sure that the posts are being properly supported. And that realm starts underneath our deck. As I noted earlier, this glass is laminated, which basically means we have 2 pieces of tempered glass that sandwich a clear piece of laminate or vinyl in between those 2 pieces of glass. By applying a copious amount of pressure and heat to the mix makes a panel of glass that's much more durable as well as much more structurally sound if it did ever break. To make the leveling process even easier, I took a level and attached that to the first panel that I installed. As I install the second panel, I use that as a guide just to guarantee ourselves that we have proper level across both panels. Because this is laminated glass, we don't need a top cap. However, we still do want to provide some type of structural support at the very top of our glass panels, which is where these come into play. This is basically just a stabilizing clip system that secures each panel to the adjacent one, making the entire system even more secure. These clips are provided whether it's a straight run or a 90-degree corner, as you can see here. This provides a very nice, clean, professional look, and once that's taken care of, I can move on to the next panel. But I did realize that I was doing myself a disservice not just taking a chalk line all the way down this run, because this provides a very distinct, even line all the way across our deck, even if our deck is slightly out of whack one way or the other. It's not. It's beautiful, but just in case. At this point in time, I wanted to say a huge and special thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, Viewrail. I've worked with them on a number of different projects over the last couple of years, and they've been a joy to work with. They have an amazing product line to choose from, whether it's a cable railing, rod railing, or of course, glass railing. And if you want to check out their amazing lineup for yourself, then please look at the link in the description box below. I'll also leave video links in the description box below if you're looking to install any of those other type of systems, because I've done plenty of tutorials on this channel whether you're looking for an interior railing or an exterior railing. And as a general side note, I did install this entire railing system by myself, which you are capable of doing. However, if you feel like you need a second hand, please make sure you do so, especially with the fact that these panels are very heavy and can be difficult to handle if it's just yourself. As I'm installing these, I did also want to finally mention that they're all specifically labeled 1 through 13. That makes it extremely easy to determine which one needs to go where, and the vast majority of these panels were the same exact size. In all honesty and full disclosure, I wasn't able to install those large nylon bushings at every single fastener location, but I did make sure that I installed at least one for each specific panel. Once all the panels were fully installed, I then went around the entire perimeter, tightening down every single fastener with an Allen key. Once that was taken care of, I could move on to our Ascend Talon cover plates. Now these cover plates were specifically designed for this system, and all you have to do for application is apply a bead of silicone in the center where there's actually an indent specifically designed for this, and then position it over the dovetail washers and push down. I did this to every single talon. Just be well aware that you might need a rubber mallet to get as tight of a seal as possible on some locations. Some are a little bit tighter than others, and therefore a little bit of added assistance is always appreciated. But it can also remove these talon covers as well without damaging the glass. And that's because you might have noticed in previous points that the glass does seem a little foggy and hazy. Well, there was an issue, a large issue with this laminated glass, and for some reason, this order just did not come out as clear as most of their orders. I sent pictures, I sent video, and we determined that every single piece of this glass needed to be replaced with a brand new piece of glass that was perfectly clear. And as you can see, this glass was much clearer than the previous one, and that's also the reason why I wasn't able to get this video out until now. But luckily for me, I'm working with a very high quality company that manufactures all within the United States, and that means they provided all this material for free with no added charge whatsoever. I take great pride in the companies that I choose to work with on this channel, and I'm very grateful to work with a company that I know and trust that I'm happy to present to my audience. And guess what? We all make mistakes, and it's all about how we overcome those mistakes in a positive way. And that's why this project turned out to be a success, because guess what? Now that we have the new glass installed, we are done. You know how I love a good transformation. This is truly one amazing, magnificent makeover. From what it was before to what it is now is stunning, and thanks in part to the brands that I've known and trusted over the years made this project possible. Look at how much of a difference this project has been compared to what it was, and that's what I call one beautiful, sexy beast. Oh yeah.
I've installed glass before, and the number one question that's always asked is, how strong is tempered glass? Well, I got a sledgehammer and an extra piece of glass. Let's test it out. A little short shot first. Since this is so strong, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more of a reinforcement action to make sure this thing doesn't slide on me. Let's try this. Safety first. Jeez. Woo! Got it. Woo! As you can see, quite a unique spiral pattern there. And the beautiful thing about tempered glass is that there's a laminated sheet right in the center, and it basically holds the entire rigidity of this panel. So even if it did break, there's still some structurability and support here because it's still one fluid panel, even though it's cracked. Pretty incredible.